Gideon, the champion of justice, the ally of Zendikar, the Oathsworn. He is one of the most honorable and righteous planeswalkers in Magic the Gathering, reassembling the profile of a true paladin. But what inspired Gideon to embark on his path of valor? And what trials and tribulations did he have to endure to attain a happy ending? Because surely good guys always survive in the end, right? Well, today we are going to explore the origins and stories of Gideon Jura. Hello, it's me, it's CGB, and welcome to the third episode of Planeswalker Points. Gideon was born on the mythical plane of Theros. His real name is actually Kithian, not Gideon. After being expelled from the army at age 13, Kithian formed his own vigilante gang known as the Irregulars, a group of outlaws who attempted to impose street justice. Unfortunately for Kithian, he was caught stealing and was sentenced to serve time in the Akroan prison, where he was forced to labor under Warden Hixus. Not long after, he ran into trouble with Rystos, an inmate who allegedly ran this prison. As a child, Kithian discovered that fighting had always been instinctive and intuitive to him, like a source of his powers. Although surrounded by Rystos' thugs, Kithian easily defeated all of them. This surprised Hixus, and he saw potential in the boy. Hixus began training Kithian every day in the way of hieromancy, the holy magic of law and order. 4 years passed, and one day, to everyone's surprise, Archon was under attack by Harpies and Cyclops alike. Kithian rallied the Irregulars and defeated them with his hieromancy magic. After the battle, while scouting to assure all monsters had been beaten, he found Heliod's shrine. Theros, god of the sun, appeared to Kithian with a dire warning. His brother, Erebos, god of the underworld, had unleashed a cruel titan upon the lands, threatening to bring devastation far and wide. Armed with the spear of Heliod, Kithian was anointed champion of the sun god and went hunting for this hell-spawn titan. Despite successfully defeating him with the Irregulars' help, Erebos himself appeared in front of Kithian. Overconfident from his recent victories, Kithian threw the holy spear towards Erebos without hesitation. But to his surprise, Erebos simply flicked his fingers and the spear went flying straight back at him. Although Kithian defended himself with magic, the spear ended up killing all of the Irregulars. Traumatized by the death of his friends, Kithian's spark ignited and he planeswalked for the first time to Valeron, where he was greeted by Mokir, captain of the Knights of the Pilgrim's Road. When asked his name, Kithian was overwhelmed by guilt from the deaths of the Irregulars. When he mumbled his name and it was misheard, he chose to take the new name, Gideon. Years went by, and Gideon found himself in Regatha, where an eternal flame was said to be the source of a pure white mana fountain. It was controlled by the Order of Heliod, and they demanded Gideon to hunt down a planeswalker before allowing him to study the fountain. That planeswalker is none other than the wild pyromancer, Chandra. Gideon's quest brought him to the shadowy plane of Diraden, a realm steeped in black mana, and ruled by the vampire prince, Virlav. Realizing they needed each other to survive, Gideon and Chandra teamed up and defeated Prince Verlav. Upon returning to Regatha, Walbert, leader of the Order, demanded Chandra to be cleansed by the flames. Realizing this was all a setup from the beginning, Gideon advised Chandra, if a person went into the fire with no regrets, they may survive unharmed. Taking his advice to heart and spending the night thinking on her actions and accepting responsibility, Chandra emerged from the flame without a scratch. She went on to defeat the entire Order before planeswalking away in a smoldering blaze. Worried about Chandra, Gideon tracked her to the plane of Zendikar. Once Gideon set foot on the plane, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As it turns out, the Eldrazi had started its invasion on this plane. Realizing he couldn't defeat this multiversal threat alone, Gideon recruited other planeswalkers from Ravnica for help. Jace, Nissa, and Chandra all answered his call, and together with the Zendikar locals, they organized a defense force against the Eldrazi invaders. The solution was worse than expected, because 2 Eldrazi titans, Ulamog and Kozilek, were leading the invasion. The Planeswalkers decided to bind both Titans to Zendikar, drawing them into the plane so that their energy could be dispersed, killing them in the process. It became clear that their very existence threatened to tear Zendikar apart, as well as the rest of the multiverse, leaving their destruction as the only option. As a final attempt, Genre channeled her pyromantic energy directly into Zendikar's ley lines, the ancient mana paths local to the plane. This caused a chain reaction and vaporized the Eldrazi Titans instantly, concluding the Battle of Zendikar. The Planeswalkers agreed the multiverse needed a heroic faction to face similar threats to the Eldrazi, and they formed the Gatewatch. As a champion of justice, Gideon joined and swore a heroic oath, "For justice and peace, I will keep watch." The Gatewatch soon found themselves facing an even bigger threat: Nicole Bolas, the Elder Dragon. As we covered in the Liliana episode, Bolas had brokered a pact between Liliana and 4 demons, binding her to eternal servitude. Although Liliana would eventually destroy all 4 of her demonic masters with the help of the Gatewatch, the pact now defaulted to the broker, binding Liliana's soul to Bolas himself. In an attempt to end Bolas's evil scheme to take over the multiverse, Gideon went hunting for him on the plane of Amonkhet, a plane where people worshipped Bolas as their god pharaoh. Although Gideon managed to do some damage to the Amonkhet's gods, the Elder Dragon outmatched him and he barely escaped. But what's even worse is that the best warriors of Amonkhet had been drafted to serve as Bolas's personal legion of zombies, the Eternals. Realizing he required a weapon capable of defeating divine beings, Gideon went to Dominaria to obtain the artifact weapon, the Black Blade, and then planeswalked to Ravnica for a final showdown with the Dragon God. Under Bolas's influence, Liliana took command of the army of Eternals, now known as the Dreadhorde, and began their invasion on Ravnica. The Gatewatch arrived and found themselves trapped by the Immortal Sun, an artifact used by Bolas to prevent our heroes from planeswalking away. It turns out this was all a setup from Bolas. He planned to lure all the powerful planeswalkers into Ravnica so that he could cast the Elder spell, a powerful sorcery to harvest the sparks from planeswalkers to gain power for himself. Gideon devised a strategy to confront Bolas, which began with defeating the god Eternal Ronus. Victorious, he would then mount his new Pegasus named Gideon's Promise and fly directly at Bolas. His plan succeeded, but just as he delivered the final blow with the Black Blade, the sword shattered into pieces. Bolas let out a maniacal laugh and said,
"Fool, I have enchanted the sword long ago, so it would never harm an Elder Dragon ever again."
When all hope seemed lost, Liliana made a shocking choice. She renounced her pact of immortality and directed the Dreadhorde's onslaught toward Nicol Bolas. The moment she defied her pact, her own soul started to perish. As her skin began to disintegrate into dust, to her surprise, she wasn't alone in her sacrifice. Gideon, tapping into his hieromancy magic, chose to take the burden of the contract and its deadly consequences for himself. This heroic act freed Liliana from her contract, but she retained her control over the Dreadhorde, and she turned the God Eternals against Bolas, ultimately disparking and defeating him. Gideon's sacrifice was a tragic moment for the Gatewatch, especially with Liliana, as she now lives with the tremendous guilt, forcing her to confront the past. Stemming from this childhood trauma of accidentally killing his friends, Gideon was always ready to sacrifice for his teammates, making him a truly righteous and heroic planeswalker. He is the textbook definition of a white mana planeswalker and inspires future iterations of white mana heroes. Let me know in the comments what you think of Gideon's sacrifice. Would you sacrifice yourself to save Liliana Vess? I know you would. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. And please check out our other episodes of Planeswalker Points with the link to the playlist at the end of the video. Thank you for watching. You're cool. It was controlled by the Order of Heliod, and they demanded Gideon be What the heck is Heliod? Heliod? I fuck.